Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of The Beginning After the End. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we open with our main protagonist in his original life. He reigned as a king through a dictatorship of sorts. I mean, who knows if that was enemies or what, but he seemed relentless with the way he put people down. Like when we saw him kind of getting crowned, there was a woman in front of him, and I wonder, and there was like a sword on the ground, so I don't know if like she was the previous owner of the throne, because he talks about it later on. In that world, thrones aren't inherited, you take them. So I'm curious how that works. And at first too, because I thought this world and the other world were the same world, but it's like, no, they're completely different worlds. Not unless we end up doing, I made this reference recently, but in a different context. Not unless we do like a Final Fantasy X thing, and it's like, well, you think you're in a different world, but maybe you're like super far into the future of your world or something like that. But it most likely is just straight up a different world. But because there was like technology, and there's a little bit of like, it's not magic necessarily like it is in the other world, but as he calls it, key. And there's also like technology. But yeah, he was like destroying an entire city, like bombarded and bombed an entire city. So I don't know if they were enemies, but either way, still to go to such lengths. And he ruled with an iron fist. And we don't know how he died though. Like he seemed fairly young when he died. I thought like maybe he grew old and died, but he looked relatively young when he died. So I'm assuming someone killed him. It didn't seem like we saw any visible marks, so maybe someone poisoned him. Because his whole thing was never really trusting anyone, never really having anyone by his side, because that's just the way that world and that society raised him to be, and he's a product of it. But when he dies, he gets reborn in this world as baby Arthur. Because I was talking about this recently in another, like, someone being reincarnated into someone else's body type of situation. Because I'm currently also watching the evil lord of an intergalactic empire, which kind of has a but just like being reborn into a young body type of situation. Not like you're reborn into an adult body or reincarnated into adult body. It's like, no, this is starting even more from scratch than that is, because at least that character's 5 years old. He's a full-blown, just been born infant in this particular universe. But he has his dad Ray and his mom Alice. And for him, it's just like it, and that's what I was bringing up with. I'm the evil lord of an intergalactic empire, where it was like, well, at least you're 5 years old with your knowledge. Like, I don't know how that would really work out with your baby. It's like, well, obviously we see how it works out. He has these internal monologues of as his full grown self trying to understand this world, but obviously he's just like getting used to things, because he's like, well, what is this world? It's not until he's a couple months old that he sneaks off and starts reading some books. And it's so interesting because even though he's in an infant's body, he can't control his body, and he's constantly talking about not being able to control his own limbs, that he has his mind and his intellect. He remembers everything from his world, which I'm wondering, does he remember how he died, or is that, the trauma of that kind of blocked? Because I'm curious, like, are we just going to abandon that world forever, or will we circle back and find out, like, no, like maybe later on in the story, something related to that world pops up, like stuff from that world starts bleeding over, maybe other people from that world start coming here, or maybe we never go back to that world and it's only in this world, which we learn a little bit about the country he lives in. It's divided up in 3 kingdoms, one for humans, one for dwarves, and one for elves. And they're not nearly as technologically advanced as the world he's originally from, because they have magic in this world, so they've never had to fully advance their technology, because they had magic to kind of compensate for that. And magic users are divided up into 2 groups: augmentors and conjurers. Augmentors, you just augment your body to increase your strength, speed, and all that. Conjurers are able to take them. So I just kind of do whatever with magic, kind of like full-blown casting spells type of thing. But he does thinks about his mom, and Alice has the power to heal. So he's like, okay, so there are people who fall outside of those 2 categories. Because at first I was just thinking, well, that's just her version of conjuring, right? But it's like, no, I guess that's probably like a third, maybe super rare version of magic. but only 1 out of 100 people can use magic. But it is also hereditary. So having both his family members using magic, because her case might not be magic, it might be something special and unique to, maybe it's like a bloodline thing in her family. Like it's a unique thing that kind of exists outside of the other, like the 2 categories of magic where his dad is an augmenter. So it's interesting too, once again, like our main protagonist is not used to this type of lifestyle. Like he grew up in an orphanage and was kind of raised to be a warrior. Kind of had to fight tooth and nail. So like that love and everything isn't something he's used to. It's even sad because when he actually becomes 2, Alice starts pointing out, it's like, yeah, it's kind of sad in all this time we never get to see him smile because he's always got this stoic look about him because he's always so inquisitive looking at the world. And he's just like, all right, I'm just reflexing on grabbing your finger, Dad. I'm not really vibing with all of this, because in his head too, he's also not viewing them as his parents because he doesn't know what that's like to view as someone as a parent. He's seen other people with parents, but he's never had that love himself. So for him, like even calling these people, even them calling him Arthur and everything, is still so foreign to him. Having a parents who love and take care of them or taking care of his every need is something so foreign to him. So that's why he doesn't embrace it, because he doesn't know how to, because he's never experienced it before. It seems like, I'm curious, was Alice and Ray adventurers before now? Because there's a crew of people that show up every once in a while for Ray to go off and kind of, I think, hunt or whatever with them. So maybe they were adventurers for a while, but then like they settled down after, after getting married and having Arthur. And I'm curious, like, does he go off and hunt from time to time? And is that kind of like his job? And that's how he, brings home money? Whereas Alice is staying home. I'm curious to learn more about their circumstances, because we got a little tidbit of that this episode with Ray, but that was about it. Even the whole notion of like, yeah, he finds some of this like annoying and stuff like that, but it's also not so bad after all. Being able to just kind of rest and close your eyes, considering like someone was always gunning for his throat, like trying to like kill him, that there was never any restful rest. You always had to keep one eye open because someone was always coming after you. So to be able to kind of sleep comfortably, probably for the first time ever in this new life of his, and just in general, is a new comfort in its own right. But as he's reading more and trying to understand stuff more, because the concept of mana isn't too far off from like the concept of ki. So he just took a lot of those principles of his own experience with that and he applied it here. He's like, it took a while, but he's little by little, he's been building up, because you have to take all the mana shards in you and basically form a core. And that's where you draw upon all your magical powers. And just slowly but surely has been drawing at that. And I love the situation where, well, first and foremost, when he's outside practicing with a stick, and Ray's like, oh my God, Alice, come look. And Alice was super pissed at him. She's like, do you know, like, how dare you? Like, what if he got hurt? He's just like, no, I was just teaching how to, defend himself. And I even love Arthur's takeaway from it was, oh, is this like a matriarchal type of situation? It's like, no, not typically, probably not in this world. It's most likely just that's just your mom's personality, and your dad kind of has to like, has no choice but to bend to her will type of situation. That might just be unique to your household, but who knows? We haven't. It seemed like there was a king, so I'm assuming not. I think it's just like that's just your household situation. But I also love when she's like, oh, we got to go take a nap. And he's like, no, and just kind of gives her the doe eye. She's like, no, it's nap time. She's like, no, absolutely not. It's okay, fine. You can read a little bit. I was like, I think that's adorable. And he's like, victory is mine. I was like, I love that stuff, especially like when he was younger too and reading the book and she noticed something and he was like, oh, did she figure me out? She's like, oh, it looks like you pooped. And he's like, no, I didn't. And he's like, it feels like, he's like, oh, well, I guess I did. I guess I was so wrapped up in reading and focused, I didn't know this. But yeah, he goes and activates his mana core, and it causes an explosion in the house, which obviously freaks Ray and Alice out, and they come running, and they're obviously captivated because it's like, wow, he's not even 3 yet, or he might already be 3 at this point. I think they say he was 3, and he was able to do that. So it shows like, oh my God, he's gifted in this, but he overestimated himself and he thought like, oh, I got this down in the bag, I'm good. But because of his stubby legs, he can't run away from the debris falling. So Alice and his dad get in front of him to block him. Well, Alice jumps ahead to block him, and Ray augments himself and blocks away the debris. Because obviously Arthur didn't notice, but if you pay attention, like obviously he got wounded, or Ray did, when he was blocking Alice from the explosion, and also she scuffed up a little bit from it all. So, and I think that's going to be something he's going to pay more attention to going forward. I thought some of this insight probably won't happen until he's a little bit older, because I think he still was in his, like, who he was in his previous life bag, even when he gets a couple years older. Based on like the trailer and stuff, I thought that's what was going to happen. But maybe we're starting it early when he kind of has that. I mean, maybe he still, it's the process of growing and changing, that even maybe he still does have that mentality a couple years in the future, but eventually that switch changes in him to not view the world and go about the world kind of with that conquering, like, dictator mentality that he had, because that world is not the same thing as this world, and you are not the same person. It is that interesting conversation of nature versus nurture. How much is like nurtured in you, and how much is like just in you by nature. And once again, like, how much does your environment involve like making you into who you are, and how much is just like, no, some of you was already, a good chunk of you might just be dead set on being who you are, and these little things might, not necessarily take you off course, but can point you in a different direction. But, I think that's kind of going to be evident, who he was in his previous life versus who he is now, whether or not, where that nature versus nurture conversation really happens. And I think it's going to be more of a nurture conversation than a nature conversation. So we'll see. But for him, it's like I said, because he's not used to this, he's just like, right, these people would do whatever to protect me, and they're both crying, and he kind of breaks down and cries too. But I think, like, knowing, like, and understanding the responsibility of his powers, like doing what he did, like, he doesn't quite recognize it now, but maybe eventually he'll realize, like, oh, I hurt my dad, and I hurt my mom, and I also scared them. So yeah, some very interesting elements. I kind of wasn't expecting the entire first episode. I think it's going to be like a slow roll, because do note, I've never read the original web novel, nor have I've I think I've come across the webtoon adaptation, but I haven't read it either. So this is my first time with this story. So I think we're probably going to slow roll that whole like process. I mean, as we see, like, during like the intro, but also during the outro, like, we are going like pretty like throughout the stages of his life as he's getting older and older and older. So I'm curious to see if that thing that kind of pops up in the post credits is like, it seems like that might be like the main antagonist. But I'm curious, it's because like I said, my understanding was just him going around the world just helping. But I don't know if that's like the main overarching story or not. I think I've read the synopsis for this, but it's been a while, so I don't remember. Other than like, oh, he's a king that gets reincarnated in another body. And like I said, based on the trailer, I was like, oh, he's trying to be better in this life than he was in his first life. Because the title, like, I think the translated title really is like, for the series, is like, because the beginning after the end is kind of like the more like, I don't know what the word is. It's kind of the more like the easier title, because like the actual direct translated title is like, what is the king going to do with his second life, or something like that. It's like the full like translated title. I want to know what those names are. Like, I guess maybe that's just like the English title, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Like, there's examples of anime and manga that just have like a very long name, but then you kind of just give it like a short phrase. I don't know what the naming convention, what that exact word is to describe, or title to describe like that type of situation. I'm getting into like the weeds or something that's not that important, but either way, I'm very excited to continue the show to see where this series ends up taking us. Obviously, I'm getting to this late. I believe there are a total of 4 episodes out now, so 3 more to go whenever I manage to get to them. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.